Thank you for logging in and let us have a very insightful, pragmatic, useful masterclass, which will be facilitated by the award-winning man himself, Mr. Mphake. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Shana. Thank you, Florence, and the team from the Road Freight SME Summit. Really want to thank all of you for joining this morning, afternoon. It's still afternoon. It's quite afternoon right now. So today we're going to talk about fleet management and the science of it and how do you optimize your fleet. As we commence, I want to tell you a little bit of a story. There's a rockfall that happened in America a couple of years ago. As these great big rocks were falling down the mountain onto the interstate, one of the rocks fell in a particular position on the highway. And as the people were looking at trying to find solution to this, they discovered that the costing of actually blowing this rock up was too big. They thought of moving it. It was going to take too much time, too much cost. And it became quite a huge rock that stood in the way to their destination. They then decided it is better for us to build the road around the rock instead of constantly wondering, how are we going to get through? And sometimes in fleet management, that is what happens. You have an impediment, you have a stumbling block. You think it's insurmountable. You cannot go around it. You cannot remove it with force. But with tactical approach to the science of fleet management, you are able to chart your way around these obstacles and get to your destination. So that's what we want to talk about today. Getting you to the destination of fleet excellence. Let us begin at the beginning with a foundation of what is fleet management? What is the definition? Now, we can look at this definition from Valetti, rather. And all it says to us is fleet management is a subset of supply chain management. And it's actually a science. It is how you look at transportation from point A to B to get to your destination. There's a whole lot of aspects around it, and you have to look at in its entirety the whole structure of fleet management to understand it. But I'm very much sure that everyone who's on the call today understands that. So at the very essence and at the beginning, you have to have a fleet strategy. This strategy will augment you. It will be the foundation of where you start and where you go. And so many transport owners and so many fleet managers understand the principle of we need to load the vehicle, we need to service the vehicle needs to get to where it needs to go. But the strategy is so much more. So let's look at a key component. Number one, let's look at acquisition. Now, a lot of people will say, of course, I've got a contract. I'm going to be delivering X, Y, or commodity. I'm going to go here and there. I'm going to use fuel. I'm going to need a driver. But it is very important to understand why you are purchasing the vehicle that you are purchasing. For example, if you're purchasing a tipper truck, what type of horse are you going to have? What type of tipper body are you going to have? If you're purchasing a low bed, a rollback, any type of vehicle will be commensurate to the type of business you're going to have. And a lot of times the excitement of I've got a contract takes over and we just purchase a truck that looks slightly to what is required. It is vitally important to have the right vehicle, whether it's a light commercial vehicle, a mid vehicle, a heavy duty vehicle, to have the right vehicle commensurate to what you're going to be distributing. It is important to understand what type of OEM I'm choosing. What is the support from that OEM? Will I get after sales service from that OEM? How will I service the vehicle? But first and fundamentally, is this the correct vehicle for what I want to do? So purchasing becomes important. How you purchase that vehicle? Are you going to purchase it outright? Are you going to use CapEx? Are you going to lease it? And just a side note here in terms of leasing even light commercial vehicles. As a fleet manager, as a fleet owner, you need to understand the issues in terms of your balance sheet and income statement as it relates to the IFRS 16 calculation and the international accounting standards. So you need to know if I'm leasing the vehicle, will it apply above the line, below the line? You need to understand that. After you've acquired your vehicle, of course, you're going to put it into operation. That's what businesses are for. You want to make profit. How am I going to make that profit? How am I going to see where my margins are? How am I going to see if I'm really making it? A lot of people do the mistake. I have an acquaintance who has a very sharp shoe. He dresses nicely. He bought a lot of trucks, but he did not understand that this income that's coming in is not really revenue. It is not really net profit. It is not really PBIT. He did not understand that. So the thought process is, all this money is mine, but you need to understand the running costs of the vehicle. There's a terminology that is used in fleet management called CPK, and it's cents per kilometer. Basically, it takes your two fundamental costings, your maintenance expenditure, your fuel expenditure. In essence, how much are you charging, or how much are you incurring per kilometer for that vehicle? Now, why is that important? If you have a 1-ton vehicle and you know the fuel and you know the expenditure, but you know that for what I am doing, I'm supposed to be running at 1.20 per kilometer, this becomes a key indicator. If you have 5 1-tonners and one of them is running at 2.70 per kilometer, is it a maintenance issue? Is it a fuel consumption issue? And you'll see as we go along how everything in fleet management is interrelated, interdependent, and interconnected. So this is a good measure for you to understand your costings, will give you understanding on your margins. The total cost of ownership, however, it is the total circumference of that vehicle. Insurance, tracking, on and on, the licensing and registration, all of the costs that come into it, how you manage your operating costs, your OPEX, becomes vitally important. And the one that I found a lot of friends ignoring is the optimum life cycle. Now, you will find the methodology. I had a friend of mine who was in finance, and his methodology was we run the vehicle until it dies, the brakes are damaged, the wheels are flying off without the driver being there, run it to the ground. But here's the problem with run it to the ground. It increases your CPK, it increases your total cost of ownership, and your profit, your income becomes null and void. So you need to know the life cycle of this vehicle. When is it an appropriate time to dispose this vehicle? When does the vehicle, at what point does the vehicle become more expensive than the income you are generating? And at that intersection, you need to know to dispose the vehicle, to sell the vehicle, get good resale value. And this is where a lot of us as fleet professionals miss it. I've got a vehicle, it's fully depreciated, I can run it. Here's the problem, your maintenance is going to go up. So the best thing for you to do is to know when is that cutoff, when is that life cycle interjecting, sell that vehicle at the right time, dispose it, and get a new vehicle in with better technology that will affect your fuel consumption and your maintenance. So if we have that strategy in place, the next most important thing is now understanding your maintenance. Now, at a previous company, I had a workshop. I had over 200 vehicles locally. And what used to happen is we had this mentality of the same thing that I mentioned of running vehicles to the ground. And I quickly changed that when I arrived at that company. And because I had a workshop, the mindset was, okay, we can fix our vehicles with an RMI approved workshop. But if you have an internal workshop, the fundamental issue of that is you need to be able to manage that workshop, manage the throughput, the resource allocation. How much time do I have to service? What are the benchmarks for actually repairing and maintaining these vehicles? What is the cost of downtime if I have this vehicle in the workshop? Whether it's my workshop, whether it's external workshop, I need to understand that all of those things proactively. So it says to you in fleet management, proactive maintenance is better than reactive maintenance, because reactive maintenance will take longer to get the vehicle back on the road. The understanding of how do I manage tires. Tires are very important. A lot of people are not aware that tire management actually influences fuel consumption. If you don't have the correct tire in the correct vehicle, taking into account the weight of the vehicle and what you're distributing and where you are going and the topography of where you're going, it becomes a problem. So if you have your own workshop, you need to make sure your parts are correct. You need to make sure that your resource allocations of your mechanics are correct. If you're outsourcing it, like many fleets are doing, you need to understand the SLAs with that service provider. Now, I want to encourage you as fleet owners, fleet managers, you need to be able to hold your suppliers and your business partners to account. Because where is the issue for you? If you have a vehicle longer than it should be out, the issue then becomes you are not generating revenue. So the economic benefit of maintaining your vehicles in a structured, proper approach is that you will know when your vehicles are out, when your vehicles are in, when to rent, when to augment. Because why are you doing this? You are doing this for customer satisfaction. When I was at that company, I decided to professionalize the workshop. We checked, we inspected, we did everything. But the primary focus for the mechanics, they changed from being just typical mechanics to almost quality assurance people. We did a proactive approach. We found issues before they manifested into bigger issues. And that's what you're going to have to do to make sure your fleet runs even much more smoother. It was a great challenge, tremendous, and I loved it. I made sure that parts did not disappear into thin air like people normally do, but it's tremendous. So let's look at the next step of it, fuel and energy management. A couple of weeks ago, I did a webinar with Smart Mobility in terms of the electrification of vehicles. And a lot of times when it comes to this, there's some trepidation of how we're going to manage this, how we're going to do this, what does the future hold? The issue is, and I want to encourage you, fleet management principles remain the same, even if there's changes in particular in the environment. But fuel management and energy management are interlinked. Implementing these solutions, having your fuel cards, and here's a thing I want to really give you a nugget, is that you have to check your data for fuel management. Remember the CPK that I spoke about? So here's the issue. If your fuel consumption is high, it means one of two things. The vehicle mechanics are an issue, or the driver behavior is an issue. And you find that out by interrogating this data. You have this data. This data is there. It's free for you. Whoever is supplying you fuel, you need to interrogate the data and understand. How it then links to, you will understand the UN sustainability goals and the move in the world to be more responsible in taking care of our planet. I'm sure everyone on the call, you want to make sure that you leave a great legacy for your children and your children's children. And this is where the environmental, social, and governance goals are coming in for a lot of organizations. This is to understand, as we consume fuel, what is the fuel consumption? What is our burn rate? What is the type of vehicle we have and how does it burn fuel? How is it being driven? Therefore, in understanding that, you can measure your fuel consumption correctly, you can measure your carbon emissions correctly, and have a goal that's important. You would see in one of the points I say, why is it important for SMEs to look at this? The landscape is going to change and it's fast changing. Companies that you are going to contract with have ESG goals. And those ESG goals are sometimes directed internationally. You will find an organization overseas having a particular benchmark and ESG goal. So that will cascade down to every one of the sectors of their business internationally. And therefore it will cascade down to every transporter. What is your carbon emission? What is your fuel consumption? We need to know that. What type of vehicles do you have? I was actually chatting to one of them, the OEMs I work very closely, and he was telling me about hydrogen vehicles and how they're looking at the infrastructure, how to bring in hydrogen, how to bring in vehicles that are hybrid, how to get better Euro spec vehicles to consume less fuel. So you're a transporter and you're looking at that thing we spoke about in terms of replacing vehicles. You have a solid contract. Everything is running smooth. At some stage, you say, I want to purchase a new truck. You need to know what the Euro spec of that truck is. How is it going to consume? How is it going to be managed? And therefore, with that, imagine the unique selling point you have when you submit for contracts. I know what my fuel consumption is. I know what my CO2 emissions is. And this is how I will augment your organization. So it's very, very important. The next step of it is regulatory compliance. When I was at a particular company, one of the contracts at Unitrans, there was a particular gentleman that always showed up there. He had a very bright orange hat with a very shiny reflector jacket, aggressive safety shoes, and he looked like he was always in for a fight. Unfortunately, this gentleman was the Shek manager. And in Shek, it's moved past HSSE with health and safety. He was the safety and quality manager in essence. And one of the things, being a transporter, I was young, or younger than I am now. And one of the things that I would, get irritated with this gentleman, because I did not understand the context. In my mind, load the truck, get the truck to deliver, and the customer is happy. What do you want from me? If I can cut the cost anywhere, or getting cheaper tires, or getting different types of lesser fuel, what is your problem? I've done the job. And this gentleman said, you have to also know the law. And he gave me an example. He said that if you're a footballer and you want to play football, if you go out of the pitch and you're in the stands and you're dribbling in the stands and you come back next to the corner kick and you run and you actually score the goal, your goal is null and void because you don't understand the context of where you're playing. Regulatory compliance is the field, it is the boundary of what we are allowed to do. And I really want to encourage fleet owners. We sometimes, as transporters, we look at it as this irritating thing. But as we understand it and we play within the field that is required, we are able to be competitive. Because again, remember, ESG is not just environment, it is also having to do with governance. When you get contracts, when you appeal to get more work, they're gonna look at how you take care of ESG. Do you have proper governance? What is proper governance? Is it ISO? Is it regulatory? Do you have a social aspect? Do you understand your carbon emission, as I've said? How do you run your organization? So regulatory compliance is very important. Depending on which nation you're joining today, our discussion, there's different regulatory compliances across the continent and across the world. One of the case studies I want to look at today very quickly is RTMS. Now, RTMS is the Road Traffic Management System. It is basically a system that is taken from what's called RTQS internationally. In very simple terms, it is ISO for fleet management. In South Africa, we have to look at that. It is self-regulation. I'll go into that much more deeper. In South Africa right now, there's the implementation of the ARTO Act. And the ARTO Act, in essence, the spirit of the ARTO Act is there's very much dangerous driving in our country. People are driving all over the place. We have a very high rate of collisions and crashes. And we want to make sure we improve driver behavior in the personal perspective. But for you to function as an organization, you need to understand how ARTO works. I'm working with a company right now where we have people who drive light commercial vehicles that we've rented out. We have people who drive light commercial vehicles that we own. And you can imagine the ARTO Act says at a certain limit of 15 points, whether it's speeding, whatever it is, that's an infringement, you will be blocked and you have to start your licensing process from start. Now you might be saying to yourself, okay, I can just get rid of the driver. Here's the problem. Your business register certificate, your BRN certificate, the certificate that says company A is allowed to renew licenses, that eventually will also be impacted. So the issue is you have to understand the regulatory compliance, you have to understand where the field is, and you have to function in that. Why is this supposed to be looked at in a positive? The positive side of it in self-regulating is that why do I want to achieve the bare minimum of what the regulation says or the standard says? For me personally, and I'll get into that at a later stage, my goal in life is to be excellent. And in excellence, good enough is the enemy of that excellence. In that excellence, I will not only just pursue the bare minimum that's required by the standard, I will also do much more because I want to get my drivers home safe. One of the pillars in our TMS that I like so much, if you look at this pillar and we'll run back to it, the 4 pillars that sits on our TMS is optimum loading. As an SME, as a truck owner, as a transporter, you need to understand that although it is tempting to overload the vehicle, here's the problem. It is a maintenance aspect that is detrimental to your vehicle. It will cause your vehicle to be out longer. The other aspect is loading the vehicle properly. Make sure you are safe. If you're going downhill with air brakes and you're not really maintaining your vehicles, the danger can come. And do you want to look in the eye of a family member who's lost their father because you did not maintain the vehicle correctly? So the second part talks about that safety in the second pillar. It talks about driver wellness and talks about driver training. This framework is a great framework that says to you, here is the basics of what you can do. Yes, it's a SAN standard. Yes, it is benchmark on RT or RTQS internationally on ISO management, but it is the bare minimum. And I want to encourage whichever country you're calling from, look at this. This is vitally important to ensure that your vehicles and your drivers get home safely. In the next aspect, then I mentioned we have, in South Africa, we have the National Traffic Act for road freight. So I'm not sure, I had put in a video, but I think the video is not going to play. And then I've mentioned ARTO, and there was a video for that as well. We're going to skip into that. I ran through that. Hopefully I spoke fast enough to come to one of my favorite aspects of it, data management. In fleet management, here's the problem. You are confounded with so much data that you don't know what to do with it. There's data from fuel management. There's accidents. There is accidents. There is traffic fines. There's auto infringements. There's fuel management. There's maintenance management. There is C-track or other tracking data. There's telematics. There's video cameras we will look at. What do you do? The issue is the essence of data management is very simple. It is not having fancy spreadsheets that look wonderful on Power BI. It is understanding what the data is saying to you. That's vitally important. In this, there's 2 big things that I love. I absolutely love this. When I started work at Value Logistics, I was thrust in the key accounts division. One of the gentlemen, he's sort of a mentor for me. His name is Stephen Herbst. Stephen Herbst took a chance on me and he said, look, come in and do tracking. But this was not just tracking a dot on the screen. This was just looking at how do we use tracking for customer experience. So I was like, okay, this is tremendous. I now understand this. This is great. So it allowed me to see it from a different world. And when I joined the organization in my first couple of weeks and in training, I was then put in the department, and that department is the one that tracks the vehicles, dot on the screen. Am I at the customer premises or not? This, because it was in the key accounts department, was different. Is the customer satisfied? So that's a completely different shift. Is our customer satisfied? How do we know that? How do we look at that? Do we even do KPIs looking at the customer, or are we looking at us internally? So the need for telematics, and in South Africa pioneered this industry because of the high risk nature. And we wanted to make sure as an industry that the vehicles are safe entities. And as a side note here, before I dive into the latest advancements, you're an SME, you're watching this, you're a truck owner, whatever your fleet size is, I want to give you an encouragement. Please read and go back and understand what your particular service provider has sold to you. When you get telemetry, one of the things that happens is you look at it and you say, I understand where the truck is, I see it's next to my customer, I assume it's delivered, that's tremendous and all of this. But there's so much more. The mistake we do as tracking or fleet people is that we say, I've got the system, I can get my insurance people off my back, I know where it's going. Here's the problem with it. You might be paying for so much more. I want to challenge you to look into the eyes of your key accounts manager from whichever company it is and actually challenge them to get what you are paying for. Do not be deceived by you've bought the lowest package. That lowest package must have not just tracking, but they need to walk the walk with you. So we'll talk about insurance at a later stage, but just for fleet efficiency, there are things from the data, there are trends you can pick up from a driver vehicle perspective that directs you to where the problems are. Do not be intimidated by the great big data, but actually look at it and actually engage the service provider to say, how can I consume this data? Here is my issues. Here is where I'm looking at. Here I'm late, I'm early, I'm off route, I'm this and that. Where can you meet me halfway? And I've had the privilege over two decades of talking and engaging with some of the most best telematics companies. The flip side though, our responsibility is, for example, if you have driver tags. I remember at one company I used to do automatic redirecting of traffic fires. And because the drivers tagged onto the vehicle, we were able to identify driver Jonathan drove this vehicle at this time and automatically redirect. The problem was guys were swapping tags. There was all types of corruption that was there that we sorted out and lack of processes. On top of that, in the data set, the issue was we did not capture the drivers correctly. So then you blame the telematics company, but the issue is garbage in, garbage out. You want to make sure everything that has to do with your vehicle tracking system is correct. The correct vehicle configuration, correct everything is 100% correct. So there's the need for telematics and proper usage of data. And driver insights are acquired when you understand that data. Normal tracking is not normal tracking anymore. If you have 10 vehicles, 20 vehicles, 30 vehicles, you need to determine on-time delivered in full. What is the percentage of success deliveries according to the time that I had set? Take it a step backwards. Most telematics companies have a routing and scheduling capability within them. So you can geolocate or map out your points of interest. You can now understand what is your plan and what is your actual and actually do what you need to do. So there is great insights into managing this. One of the things that you will see and you'll be bombarded with as we go along in the industry is that AI is the buzzword for everyone in the community. Everyone is talking about AI, automation, and all of this. All of these technologies should be channeled in making our vehicles safe, making the roads safe, making sure we deliver on the promise that we make to our customers. And they should actually augment, help us, instead of becoming a consuming or a diversion. I want to show this as an example. This is one of the companies, and what they use, what's called motor vehicle artificial intelligence, is that there's a camera, that's the dash camera that sees the inside in the cab. It reads the posture of the driver, and it reads also outside to avoid collisions, to look at all the types of things that you need to look at. So you dovetail this with your tracking data. And from this, you can get a healthy score of where your driver is. The great thing about motor vehicle artificial intelligence is that when you talk to your drivers about things that go wrong on the road, the step you need to take is to coach the drivers, not beat the drivers, but help the drivers. There's a gap here. We want to help you. This motor vehicle artificial intelligence, the dash camera actually talks to you. The AI reads the facial expressions. If you have a phone, it reads it and it tells you you are distracted. It tells you that you're not wearing your seatbelt. It speaks to you. It is coaching in real life. And here is the great aspect of it. When installing data, installing these technological advancements, here's the key to make it work. One, you need to have the change management understanding. I have to tell the driver why I'm doing this so that he comes on board with me, so that it's successful. I understand now. It helps me to do what I need to do. Secondly, in doing this, like I've said, coach and speak to, not at, the drivers. Because once they understand this, it helps us tremendously. Keeps your vehicles on the road, you avoid accidents, it is tremendous. So, it is something that is coming, and I want to encourage you, it is something that's going to be great. So how do you tie all of this up? Fleet optimization. Now, this is where I want to tell you a story. So at Easy Access, you heard Shayna speak about the awards that we won, and it was actually really a team effort. I can read the nice, wonderful English that's written here, but I'm actually going to tell you what it really is. And you hear these terms, orchestration. I was at Power FM and the guy asked me, what are you orchestrating with trucks? It sounds like a symphony. And I said, yes, it's a symphony of data and the transportation of goods. So what did we do at Easy Access? Easy Access is a work at height solutions company. So what that means, if you see orange machines at the airport that go up and down, scissor lifts, that's Easy Access. You see Lindy forklifts, that's Easy Access. We came in with the management team and we saw that we had a problem. And this is the practicality of this. We took over and there was a number of trucks. Now you can imagine some of these machines weigh 30 tons, 40 tons, some of them on average 12 tons, 6 tons. So because they are machinery and that's the inventory, you need specialized trucks to transport these vehicles around, this machinery around. Goes back to the first point. Make sure you buy the right vehicle for your application. So we looked at this and I said to the team, we're going to embark on what's called TMS, Transport Management Solution, where you look at the bare tenets of supply chain management end to end. Not, I loaded the truck, it delivered. What happens before, in between, and after, with the hope of I deliver what I need to the customer. One of this, what we did is we said, we need a strong optimization in the planning. We used software to get historical delivery and collection data. We benchmarked what type of truck will be needed based on the type of machinery we were delivering. We took those machines and we now, and the other thing about optimization, we said we can do all of this with trucks that are lesser than what we have. We sold most of the vehicles. We got a third-party logistics company to now bring in trucks that are commensurate to our load. So let me give you a practical example. So I would have my truck load 6 machines, and the vehicle is going to Midrand. And they would go to Midrand and offload. Now remember, my commodity at Easy Access is not pallets of food or something that's perishable or oil or anything like that. I have to deliver, and my inventory is machines that have been off-hired. So people would hire a machine for 3 or 4 days. I would then be expected to collect that machine, bring it back. Here's the regulatory compliance. Make sure it's safe to be worked at height. Can you imagine being 20, 30 meters in the sky and the machine is not compliant? This is not a good thing. If wind comes, it's not good. So we would deliver. I would plan my routes, optimum, stop 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The other thing I did is I said, this is my planned route. Here's my actual route from the tracking. I know where I'm delivering. I'm going to overlay that and make sure that I deliver on time. I can take into account whether there is traffic or anything or load shedding. in South Africa. South Africans will know what load shedding is. I'll take account of that. But what it means is that I know these trucks, my 2,700 trucks, are going to deliver 127 stops from the beginning. This is the times they're going to have. And here's the value add. I can tell my customer the window of delivery that they can expect. Now they can plan their resource. So we go out, but here's the other big thing that I mentioned. I would then collect all the machines in Midrand in that area and bring them back to base. How is this helping easy access? The more machines I've collected while delivering and I'm bringing them back, the more it gives time to the workshop to make sure, in what our language used to call them green, ready to be rented again, therefore generating more revenue. So I started with ensuring that I do this project involving every aspect of the company and let them understand the why and understand the goal, and therefore an orchestrated supply chain. Now, the benefit is your fuel consumption, your delivery time, your utilization. And you might be saying that, Jonathan, this sounds like very big things for big transporters. You can do it. It's very simple. My first ever job at Value Logistics, I had a page. I knew where the customers were. I followed the truck. I ticked off. I called the drivers. I engaged with them, made sure they are safe. I didn't need really big software. And it was orchestrated. My father, Jonathan Mphake, used to work at a meat delivery company. And he was the first routing and scheduling person I saw. I remember being 10 years old, being in a very cold city deep warehouse. But I loved hanging out with him. He was gone a lot, Lion Hall, all types of things. And I remember him taking the physical orders, this huge stack of invoices, and splitting them. And he had clipboards. And he would not only put the invoices in, he sequentially put the invoices in the clipboards. JDJ 727GP, that's your route for today. That's you. So we knew, the guys knew what to load, they knew what sequence to follow. It's as simple as that. He was an optimizer himself. He understood what is the weight, what is the capacity of that vehicle, and he lined them up, and they delivered. Fuel consumption, maintenance, all of these things become better with just planning and executing. So that is what we actually did. And what we did eventually is that we decreased our total kilometers, decreased our fuel consumption, won the Enviro Award, won an award for the Logistics Achiever Awards, because we took an FMCG thing and we imparted it in machinery delivery. And I want to encourage you again, no, do not ever let someone say it's impossible. It's not. It's impossible until it is done. So I want to fast track because of time. I want to fast track on several issues. If you notice, we're building up and all of these things are interconnected. When you have your tracking, your data, you understand root cause analysis. When you have crashes or accidents, you will now understand. And again, check what you're paying for. Most telematics companies have accident reconstruction built in to their units. Then you understand, I'm loading these commodities, I'm doing these commodities, and as an overarching, as a business, what is my insurance needs? What am I going to cover? One of the things that sinks a lot of transporters, they don't do what's called GIT, or goods in transit insurance. You think, let me cut cost here, maybe I'm delivering apples if they break. But here's the issue. It has the potential to sink you. So it is absolutely important for you to get bigger contracts, better contracts, to have GIT. To understand that when you use your telematics and your vehicle and your video telematics properly and reduce your accidents, reduce your traffic fines, reduce your fuel consumption, reduce your maintenance, your cover becomes better. I was hearing, we are here at Mont Blanc, and every insurer is like this. They will look at your risk factor. What are you doing to avoid risk? And how do we grade you? I'm an SME, I've got 25 trucks. How many accidents or crashes have I had over the last 100,000 kilometers? If I can show a positive trajectory with the regulatory compliance of our TMS and the National Traffic Act, my insurance people will be very friendly to me because I'm safe. Cut cost, save cost, avoid cost by doing what's right. So the one that I'm really passionate about is that once you've done all of that, here is, and this we're going to a close, one of the things that we ignore as transporters. The methodology that I love is people, process, technology. The process is RTMS and regulation. The technology is the dash cameras, the tracking systems, they are great. What about the people? The people element is putting technology in does not become a magic wand. They will come with you. The old leadership maxima says, he who leadeth and no one followeth is merely taking a walk. Take your people with you, the office, the creditors, the insurance, the tracking, everything. Take them with you to the journey. What is our destination? Every policy, every procedure, everything needs to be clear so we know where we're going. And I thank my parents, I thank them for instilling this with us because we have direction. That is the conclusion. And if you want to get a hold of me, the best thing to do is look for me on LinkedIn. There will be a website coming up very soon. The LinkedIn will also change and look quite pretty. I'm not a man of colors. Shayna and Charney and Florence know. I'm like, yeah, let it happen. I'm a trucker. Like that color scheme, I don't care. But there are people who care about it. That stuff, they will take care of it. But look for me on LinkedIn, inbox me on LinkedIn. I am going to be available. A couple of things that's going to happen with, you see this M that's been in the corner, that's not just for my surname, that's motivation. It's a play on words on motivation and the motor vehicle, the motor industry that we are in. So I'm going to be doing fleet management consultancy, and hopefully, as you can tell, doing, a lot of speaking, professional public speaking, emceeing events. In fact, Florence was she's a great entrepreneur. She took a gamble on me to be co-hosting with the wonderful Shayna in terms of being the MC at the last year's event. So business conferences, every type of stuff like that, reach out to me. Business fleet strategy, anything to do with that, reach out to me and we will make it work. We will transport you and direct you to destiny and get you at the destination you want to. Thank you very much.